Let's start with this. Aaron Rodgers comes out and says Kaepernick should be in the league. I like the fact that Aaron's actually talking. He's a big, prominent, iconic player. I like my quarterbacks to talk, not just football, mostly football. But what was your takeaway on it?
My takeaway is that I think we're looking at this in far too linear fashion, right? Is he good enough to play in the NFL? Yes.
Yes.
I heard Derek Carr say something yesterday about the day he was named starting quarterback for the Oakland Raiders and what Matt Schaub said to him. Why don't you take a listen? This is actually put out on the Raiders Twitter page on their website. This is what Derek Carr had to say.
Okay.
He told me that day that I was going to be the starter, asked me if I was ready. I said, yeah, I'm ready, And Schaub is sitting there. He shakes my hand. He said, congratulations. He said, obviously, I'm mad. I think that I should be playing in those things. And I don't think he worded it that way. I'm just saying. But he said, whatever you need, I got your back. Whatever you need, I want you to know out of anybody in this building, I have your back. And from that point forward, he proved it every single day.
What we've done a bad job of, Colin, in the media is pointing out the difference in position from starter to backup. Being a backup or being in the league, especially as a backup, isn't necessarily about your skill level. Do you have to be competent if called upon?
Sure.
Of course you do.
But you're a backup.
But you're a backup. And remember when Colin went to Seattle, what did Pete Carroll come out and say at that press conference? He's like, look, we think he's a starter. He thinks he's a starter. We just don't have a role for a starter. If he wants to be in the league, he has to be the consummate backup. And the role of the consummate backup is, yes, to be ready, but also to get the starter ready. There's a certain kind of cerebral X and O aspect, the likes of which Colin has never been. He's just been kind of a read and react guy.
Yeah, he is.
Who's learned to be a better quarterback. He's not a natural quarterback, even going back to his days at Nevada. And I think that's part of what's being missed. Is there part of the kneeling and I don't know if it's being blackballed or the fact that it can be seen as divisive
Sure.
In the media to fans and to sponsors? Sure, I'm not denying that. But there's also a huge portion of, if you want to be a backup in this league, the role of the backup is to get the starter ready, make him the best possible version of himself, and that's not who Colin Kaepernick is.
Matt Hasselbeck lasted in this league a long time. In the last 3 years, he was seen as a great teammate. Could start in a pinch.
Right, which he did for Indianapolis and was good.
Yeah, but that, to your point, is the backup is a different job than the franchise quarterback. So there was a lot of outrage on the Matt Stafford contract. I don't actually get it at all. I thought he kind of gave him a discount, a haircut. What did you make of it?
I think people don't understand comps. They don't understand comps in real estate. You want to live in this market. You want to live in the market of the top 10, top 15 quarterbacks. This is the going rate. This is what you have to pay. And look, Matt Stafford, the last 6 years in the NFL, and the only 6 years he's been healthy, remember, has struggled with health early in his career. He's thrown for over 4,000 yards each of those years. 4,000 is the new 3,000. It's the sign of an above average, a very good season. And look, they haven't had a defense. When they've had a defense, they were the third-ranked defense. They won 11 games. Everyone who works in the NFL will tell you, if you have a legitimate top 15 starting quarterback, you can win 6 to 9 games a year. And if you have a defense, now you're a playoff team or got a chance to win a Super Bowl. That's the case with Matt Stafford. And if you look at the last 15 years before he became quarterback, they didn't have a 10-win season. He's had 2 11-win seasons since he's been the starting quarterback. This is pretty obvious to me. What other option do you have if you're Detroit? You're going to go try and find another quarterback? You're going to try and play this thing out and No, you end up saving money on your cap by paying him a big signing bonus and playing it out. Now you have him under contract for essentially the rest of his natural life.
And then you can worry about other stuff.
Correct.
I can worry about
There's cost certainty. The cap's going to go up. You have cost certainty with your quarterback position. You know that he's shown. The only question with Stafford was his ability to stay healthy. I understand they have a terrible record against above 500 teams. That speaks more to the fact that they don't have a running game and they haven't had a defense. And when they solve those two things, they'll have a better record against the better teams in the league.
Okay, so when Boston-Cleveland made the deal, I said Boston won because they got the superstar and a bunch of Jay Crowders and a guy with a bad hip and a 7-footer I got Kyrie Irving. I won the trade. Now, Kristine and I can disagree on all that. The media was like, whoa, Cleveland won it. And I'm like, nobody's ever said in the history of the league, the Lakers gave up way too much for Kareem. The Heat gave up way too much for Shaq.
Also traded for the rights of Magic, too.
So
Gail Goodrich.
Okay, yeah, that's right. So you tell me, when you watch this thing and Cleveland's trying to get another piece, what is it all saying to Doug Gottlieb?
Well, Cleveland's saying they lost the trade. They pretty much, and they're also mad about Danny Ainge's press conference. We've never seen this much of somebody being upset about a press conference since. Remember when the Ravens, when they lost in the playoffs and Tom Brady said, you got to know the rule book? And then, of course, the Ravens called the Colts and the Colts turned the Patriots in for the deflated footballs. Danny Ainge said at his press conference, hey, I don't know if Isaiah Thomas is going to be ready first day of the season. The trade was already done. Like, the idea that the Cavs didn't know that Isaiah Thomas had a bum hip when Isaiah Thomas didn't play the last 2 playoff games against the Cleveland Cavaliers is the most laughable excuse for not completing this trade I've ever heard. This is, again, we'll go back to a real estate deal. You passed inspection, right? And today is closing day. And you're like, we need a $5,000 credit to get the floors redone. Like, no. The floors need to be redone. That was part of the disclosures. This is part of the agreement. And this thing can't fall out of escrow if you're the Cavs, because then they'd have to take Kyrie back, and now he'd go at a discounted rate. This is not going to remain as his trade value if they take back this trade. The Celtics have all of the leverage, not the Cavs.
You and Kristine are in cahoots. I don't like what's happening to this show.
Doug and I actually haven't spoken once this week.
Haven't spoken once this week.
I
like you have watched her. I gave her a lot more than 15 minutes on that you said you gave her, or you gave her 5 minutes on American Ninja Warrior.
You guys haven't spoke. Yeah, you're Putin, you're Trump. You didn't speak either. Okay, Mayweather and McGregor. Now, this is interesting. You have a totally different take on this. Now, I think Mayweather is probably the 4th best fighter. Ali's the best fighter I've ever seen. Okay. Sugar Ray Leonard. Roberto Duran in his prime was unbelievable. Tyson's a weird. For about an hour and a half, he was unbelievable. Then I classify Floyd's in there somewhere. You're not a Floyd fan. You think?
No. I look. I'm not going to sit here and say I know the great boxers of all time. You talk to boxing people in Las Vegas last week. I was there for 3 days. You parachute in and take a bunch of pictures, and you pretend like Kristine doesn't even exist when you're there. Anyway,
True.
The rest of us, I was there with the fight guys. The fight guys are like, look, Floyd's.
Wait. What do you mean you were there with the fight guys?
I was there Wednesday through Friday
with a bunch of boxing people.
Well, no, the boxing guys are there. The guys that noses to the side, like Paulie Malignaggi, who's joining us. By the way, do you think Showtime might have wanted to ask Paulie Malignaggi, since he's the only human being who was in the ring with Conor McGregor before the fight, like, hey, what's Conor McGregor actually like in the ring? Like, he was on the broadcast, and they never asked him what he was like to spar against. It was amazing. Anyway, those guys will tell you, like, look, Floyd's great, but he's kind of done the Iowa football thing.
Wait a minute. Wait, I'm on Iowa now. Watch out.
Well, you're on Iowa now?
I am very prominent in Des Moines today. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
He's with the radio shows there now.
Well, look, Wisconsin is the new Iowa this year in terms of scheduling.
So how's Floyd Iowa football?
Well, he's brilliant with who he's fought and when he's fought them, right? Like he waited out Pacquiao until Pacquiao was over the hill. When he fought Oscar was over the hill.
Yes.
Like, he fought a non-boxer coming off of 2 years of retirement who had no shot. He is the greatest. Danny Ocean couldn't have pulled off a greater heist. That's what it was. You know, greater heist? He was wearing a mask walking in, and when asked about it, he was like, what do you think it is? They're like, it's a heist. Like, yeah, it's a heist. Like, it was such a great con that even Conor didn't know he was conned. Afterwards, Conor was asked, and he thought he was winning. He's like, yeah, it was great. I was like, no, you weren't. He wasn't throwing any punches. He was taking losing out of the equation. And from the scheduling and who he fights, when he fights, creating this fictitious 50-0 record, right? It's not that he's not a great fighter, but the greatest of all time, boxing guys, like, not really. Probably not even greatest in his weight class.
Right.
He's a great fighter, but the record makes us think he's the GOAT, and he tells us that he's the GOAT. And then they created this image that Conor McGregor could knock him out. Conor McGregor hit him with an uppercut with his left hand in the first round. It did nothing to Floyd. He had no shot of winning that. But he allowed doubt to creep in, and he made it so that a 10-round fight that was never really competitive made us think like it was a great fight. Like, it wasn't a great fight. There was not one moment where you thought he was going to lose.
Not a second.
There was a split second for me in like the first or second round.
The only thing that's ridiculous about this is what's ridiculous about boxing. Okay, that the first round that Conor won. Everybody thinks Conor won because Floyd didn't throw it. He threw 4 punches. Right. That round counts the exact same as, say, the 9th round, when Conor McGregor could barely keep his hands up because he was so exhausted, and he was just he was basically like a speed bag for Floyd Mayweather, right?
Yeah.
The scoring in boxing is ridiculous. Absolutely, that's the only way in which maybe somehow if Floyd decided to climb, the only way he could lose was if he walked into a left hand.
Just walked. And by the way, then it would take a combination or two after that.
Right,
Like
but it was
one
walking
punch.
into a left hand where he's stunned, and then Conor goes in and goes in for the kill. And he's smart enough to put his hands up and allow Conor to all his heavy punches. It was beautiful strategy, winning on conditioning, winning on intelligence.
Yeah.
And then the fight was not really, there was never a moment to which they're standing and trading punches in the ring.
Never.
Not one moment. But you have people walking away going, that was a great fight. Like, no, it wasn't.
Listen.
We make the mistake of entertaining is great. We do that. I'm a Big 12 guy. I love Big 12 football. Okay?
It's not great.
No, but it's way more entertaining than Big Ten, way more entertaining than the SEC. Because we have guys, because you go down to Texas Tech and first one to 75 wins.
Right.
It's wildly entertaining. That was entertaining because of the tattoos, the image, the suit, the interviews. All of that was great. It was not a great fight, and it only proves that Floyd Mayweather is the greatest con artist in the history of Las Vegas that has produced so many. Whether you want to call him a magician, a con artist, whatever. That was a magnificent heist he pulled off on the American public on Saturday night.